Howdy folks, Spencer here, and today Cryptic has finally released the blog containing all of the information for the 14th anniversary bundle, so I'm going to go through step by step and break everything down. As always, chapters are listed down below. And the first thing I want to take a look at is when the bundle is dropping into the game and how much it's going to cost. So if you're on PC, it is going to be added tomorrow on February 15th, and if you're over on console, it'll be dropping into the game on March 28th. As for the cost, it has a base cost of 17,500 Zen. It will be on a 25% discount for the first 2 weeks of it being in the game, taking it down to 13,125 Zen. And if you're willing to be patient and you wait for a bundle sale a couple months from now, you will be able to get this bundle for 35% off. Now, if you're not interested in buying the entire bundle, the 4 brand new C-Store ships that they're introducing with this bundle will be purchasable on their own as well for 2,400 Zen apiece, and that sale will be running for the first week of the bundle being introduced. So again, if you're not interested in the entire bundle, you can pick up the ships on their own a bit cheaper, and if you have a T6 coupon that is not from an event, then you should also be able to use the coupon right away on one of these new ships. And heading over to the bundle contents, there's 4 new C-Store ships here. And again, these 4 new ships are going to be purchasable on their own in the C-Store if you don't want to buy the entire bundle. So you've got the Atlantis Temporal Destroyer, the Ahwahnee Command Carrier, the Chekov Intel Science Warship, and the Princeton Miracle Worker Cruiser. Again, you can get those outside of this bundle. And then we have the Tal Shiar Adapted Destroyer as the premium ship you'll get on account-wide unlock for purchasing the entire bundle. And it is wild to me that they never put in another ship here or decide to change the ship. There's a lot of negative feedback about the Tal Shiar Adapted Destroyer being in this bundle because it just is very underwhelming. I haven't seen many people happy with its inclusion here. I've got a video going over it, and 1701 also has a really good video explaining the issues with it. But ultimately, the fact that this is the ship that they decide to pick to put into this bundle as the premium bundle exclusive just is the latest illustration of just how disconnected whoever's making decisions over there is from how the game is actually played at an endgame level. The Tal Shiar Adapted Destroyer brings no value to an endgame level. It is outperformed by the Hydra from the 13th anniversary bundle, and even the Hesperian Cruiser that we got with the summer event last year has the same spec combo as this Tal Shiar Adapted Destroyer and has a much better overall layout. So it is a premium ship, sure, but it is highly outdated, and we've got free ships that are able to beat it nowadays. So its inclusion as a premium ship, again, just illustrates how disconnected they are from endgame play. Next up, for purchasing the bundle, you'll also get the Lafayette class Recon Destroyer. If you already have the Lafayette, you're not going to be getting a discount on the bundle. And then the Constellation Heavy Cruiser Refit, which is a tier 3 ship. This is here explicitly so that you can get the skins from it to use on the Ahwahnee. Next up, there is some reclaimable account-wide bundle exclusives. The Type 3 EVA Phaser Rifle, as seen in Star Trek First Contact. The Borg Kingdom Interceptor Probes, which are frigate hangar pets. And then there's a new ground and space trait. And for the bundle exclusives that are just a one-time, you get a T6 coupon, 6 starship slots, 6 experimental upgrade tokens, 14 ultimate tech upgrades, 14 master keys, and the assemblator title. Now, the thing here is 6 experimental upgrade tokens isn't going to be enough to upgrade all of the ships in the bundle up to X2. You could either go in and upgrade all of the 6 ships up to T6X, or you can upgrade 2 of the 6 up to T6X2. So they don't include enough upgrade tokens in the bundle to fully cover all of the ships that they're including in it. So if you do pick up the entire bundle and you want to upgrade all of the ships, you are going to have to spend some more money to pick up some more experimental upgrade tokens. And heading into the bundle exclusives, the first here is the Type 3 EVA Phaser Rifle from 2372. Again, this is from First Contact, and this is a modified Type 3 Phaser Rifle specially refitted for use in areas lacking atmosphere, also engineered with a special secondary fire designed to put distance between the user and any target that survives the blast by creating a narrow cone of kinetic displacement energy on impact, dealing phaser damage and knocking back affected foes. And if you're using this while you have an EV suit active, this weapon deals increased damage and its secondary firing mode recharges quicker. So again, if you're a fan of First Contact and you've been wanting that weapon, looks like it's going to be quite interesting. Next up are the Borg Kingdom Interceptor probes. These are frigate rank hangar pets that you can use on any ship that has 2 hangar bays. So they're not going to be usable on any ship, just those with 2 hangar bays. Keep that in mind. The pets here have 2 360-degree anti-proton beam rays. They have fire at will permanently active. They have mutual annihilation, meaning that they're going to go in and ram your target and self-destruct. And they have reduced base hangar launch cooldown. These look like interesting pets, but the Borg pets that came on the assimilator ended up being extremely underwhelming, so I have very low expectations of these things, but they may appeal to some of you, and hopefully the damage on them is better than what we saw with the assimilator pets. Next up is a personal space and personal ground trait here, both called Liberated Borg Kingdom Nanoprobes. The space one here will provide a scaling buff of +2 to +20 kinetic damage resistance rating and +2 to +20 critical severity with energy weapons. The amount of this buff that you get is going to grow every 5 seconds that you're in combat, and all of the stacks are lost when combat ends. The question is, how quick is this building up? If this is just +2 every 5 seconds, the value of this trait may not be that great because, again, you lose the stacks as soon as you exit combat. However, if it's going up by like +6 every 5 seconds, then that could make this a meta trait. So the value of this really depends on how much the buff is increasing every time it grows. And for the ground version here, +2 to +20 for kinetic damage resistance rating and critical severity with weapons. The ground version, though, grows every 2 seconds, so you'll be able to get that buff a bit faster. Again, it's an interesting concept, but I really wish they would have told us how quickly this builds up in the blog here. And heading over to the new ships, I'm going to start off here with the Atlantis, and I'm going to skip the visuals today because we only have the one picture for each, so I'll be taking a closer look at the visuals on the stream I do tomorrow, and also when I do the full reviews for these ships in the next couple of weeks. So, starting off here with the Atlantis, it has a hull and shield mod of 1.15, it's got a 5.2 weapon setup, plus an experimental weapon, 3 device slots. For the bridge officer setup here, you have a Lieutenant Tactical, Commander Tactical with Temporal Operative, Ensign Engineer, Lieutenant Commander Science, and a Lieutenant Commander Universal with Intel. This is really good. This is a good energy weapon platform. It's good for Dusai. And for those of you that really like Beam Overload, this is a ship in the C-Store that is comparable to the Temporal D7, which I rated as one of the best Beam Overload platforms a while back. This has the ability to do Recursive Shearing 3, Beam Overload 3, and Override Subsystem Safeties 3, all on a ship in the C-Store with 5 forward weapons, 2 aft, plus an experimental weapon. So this is a really, really capable platform here. And for the consoles, it's 5 tactical, 2 engineering, and 4 science. So you're not going to do an isomag setup on this, but if you have your Spire locators or exploiters, that's going to go really well with this. Again, this overall setup so far, very impressive for energy weapons, and especially if you're a Beam Overload player, this is a ship you're going to want to mess around with. Base turn rate of 15, impulse mod of 0.2, inertia of 60, plus 10 to weapon and aux power. It can, of course, equip dual cannons, and being a Commander Temporal ship, it does have the molecular reconstruction ship mechanic, and it has the Destroyer Mastery package, which is plus accuracy, crit severity, crit chance, and the plus 10% kinetic and energy damage there. For the Admiralty stats, you've got 18 engineering, 40 science, 59 tac, and the special is plus 10 tac per tac ship. The console here is the disassembler emitter. This powerful technology causes localized disruptions to molecular bonds in most matter, resulting in something akin to disintegration. The field builds in strength and area over time, increasing both the angle of the cone-shaped area and the amount of physical damage it inflicts on foes in the area, thus making it more and more devastating the longer it can be maintained. This console emits an ever-increasing molecular destabilization cone, which will attempt to disassemble pieces of the hull of enemy starships. This cone starts very narrow and relatively weak, but builds in both area and damage intensity over time. As it strips away the enemy's hull, it also weakens their resistances, causing them to take increased damage while affected by this ability. The passives on this are that you're going to get an exotic damage buff based on your energy weapon training skill, and a bonus to energy weapon damage based on your exotic particle gen skill. So, very Dusai focused. And the tooltip here is that it can hit up to 5 foes, it's a scaling radiation damage, and it's a minus 15 all damage resistance debuff. So, pretty interesting console here, and the visuals of it do look pretty cool. And next up is the Starship trait Temporal Tunneling. While this trait is slotted, activating an exotic damage bridge officer ability or any temporal operative bridge officer ability will grant your ship a 100% firing cycle haste buff for energy weapons for 5 seconds. That can only be triggered once every 15 seconds. So 100% firing cycle haste with 33% uptime. That averages out to 33% firing cycle haste, which is twice what you would see from Calm Before the Storm. So if you're on a build where you are able to run an exotic ability or temporal ability to keep this up every 15 seconds, this is going to be insanely good for you. So again, that is on average twice the amount of haste you would see from Calm Before the Storm. It is a much shorter much shorter duration that it's active, but that is a very powerful firing cycle haste buff, and I foresee this being a new meta trait for many of your builds. And the last thing here for the Challenger is the Focus Particle Cannon Experimental Weapon. Leaning into sources of non-traditional starship damage, this weapon uses similar technology to most ships' deflector dishes to stream a high-intensity burst of exotic particles at the enemy. The radiation damage inflicted by this weapon will scale with auxiliary subsystem power instead of weapons, and also leverages your exotic particle gen skill. So, for those of you looking for a Dusai experimental weapon, this is going to be very appealing to you. And overall, the Atlantis, or the Challenger here, is going to be a very capable Dusai platform. And if you're not wanting to do the Dusai stuff, this is still going to be a very capable energy weapon platform in general. Like I said too, especially for a Beam Overload setup, Beam Overload 3, Override Subsystem Safeties 3, and Recursive Shearing 3 in a C-Store ship, that is insanely good. So definitely a ship to take a look at if you're an energy weapon player, and especially a Beam Overload player. And if you're a Dusai player, also one that you may want to consider. And next up is the Ahwahnee Command Carrier. For those of you that were hoping that the Ahwahnee or the Cheyenne here would be a flight deck carrier or a cruiser, unfortunately it is a 3-3 science carrier. So you've got a hull modifier of 1.45, a shield mod of 1.2, 3-4 weapons, 3 aft. It's got 4 device slots, and for the bridge officer setup here, you've got a Commander Science with Command, a Lieutenant Commander Engineering with Merrick Worker, Lieutenant Tactical, Lieutenant Commander Universal, and an Ensign Universal. So this isn't going to be the most appealing setup for this ship for a lot of you, but this should be a very capable support platform. To me, this is basically a better version of the Seneca or Hiawatha that we got a year or two back. So if you liked the Seneca or Hiawatha, this is a ship that's going to appeal to you. Console-wise, you've got 1 tactical, 5 engineering, and 5 science. So the idea here is you can either set this thing up with your traditional science focus, or if you really want to go heavy and boost the pets up, you've got those engineering consoles for the advanced engineering consoles that boost up hangar pets. So you can go either way. You can either boost up your science side of stuff, or you can boost up the pets with those engineering consoles. Base turn rate of 7, impulse mod of 0.15, inertia rating of 25, so this thing is going to slide and it's not going to turn well. It's got plus 5 engine power, plus 15 aux. It does have 2 hangar bays, and given it is a commander command, it does have the inspiration ship mechanic, and it has the subsystem targeting. And it's got the science carrier mastery package, which is minus hangar pet recharge time, plus max HP, plus shield regen and hardness, and max shield hit points. For the Admiralty stats here, it's 52 for engineering and science, and 22 for TAC, with the special being plus 8 Eng and Psi per TAC ship. Now, thus far, I imagine most of you probably are not that impressed with the Ahwahnee, but that's where the accessories step in. The first is the console here, the Fleet Power Network Array. Sophisticated power transfer equipment normally found on stations is mounted here on a starship, allowing the fleet to share power and move it where it's needed when it's needed. Activating this console provides the target-friendly ship and up to 12 pets. It controls a massive boost to weapon cycle speed and a sizable chance to activate a random firing mode among Beam Overload 1, Cannon Rapid Fire 1, and Torpedo High Yield 1 for a few seconds every few seconds. In addition, this console provides an increase to max aux power and EPG skill. And here is the tooltip numbers. To the target and up to 12 pets they control, plus 62.5% weapon firing cycle haste for 35 seconds. And note, this doesn't explicitly say energy weapons like the trait on the Challenger did. This just says weapons, so this may impact torpedoes as well. And then a 65% chance to apply a Beam Overload 1, Cannon Rapid Fire 1, or Torpedo High Yield 1 every few seconds for 35 seconds to the target. And according to Cheyenne over on the Reddit Discord, the firing mode here will not, or it should not, overwrite the one that you have up. And the haste on this is affected by auxiliary power, apparently, meaning that it can go higher than that 62.5% number, so long as things haven't changed since the last time they looked at it. So you can use this on yourself. That is 62% firing cycle haste for 35 seconds to you and your pets. This console is immediately meta with numbers like this. Even if you don't like the Ahwahnee, you're buying it just for this console, because 62.5%, weapon cycle haste there, that is huge. That is absolutely enormous, and if you're a support player, you can cast this to a teammate as well. I don't know if it stacks, but if it does, then that's going to allow for some insanely high energy weapon records to be set. So, again, with the numbers this thing has, on paper, this is immediately a meta console. And next up is the Starship trait Flagship Staffing. Using a command, hull heal, or shield heal bridge officer ability on yourself or an ally is going to reset the cooldown and reduce the shared category cooldown of weapon firing modes on that ship or ships. This effect does have a moderate cooldown. Again, we don't have the numbers here for this one, but if that's able to be used on yourself as well, and that's impacting the shared category cooldown, that could be something to help with fire at will uptime. But it does say that it has a moderate cooldown, so we'll have to see what this looks like when it goes live, so don't get your hopes up. And then we have the Hangar Pets, the Type 7 shuttlecraft. These have attack pattern beta, and they perform close-in sensor passes, which debuff foes' damage resistance rating, meaning that it's got two different debuffs on it. And if the foes have less than 50% average shield facings, they'll take even more damage resistance debuff from the close-in sensor passes. These pets, on paper, are also meta. Cheyenne said that when they were testing these, they had to tune them down a little bit because they were going in and debuffing enemies to minus 200% resistance at max force. So if the numbers on this are anywhere like what it sounds like here with attack pattern beta and another debuff, these are probably also going to be the new meta pets moving forward. But again, wait for some testing to happen tomorrow before you go out and rush to pick this up. But those pets, with the amount of debuff that they could be bringing in, that could be huge for in-game performance. So we'll have to see how it goes. But overall, the Ahwahnee, I think, was not appealing to most of you just from the stats alone. But the accessories on it are carrying it quite heavily. So I foresee many of you picking up the Ahwahnee if the stuff it has goes live like this. And next up is the Chekov Intel Science Warship. So this is the Springfield. It has a hull and shield mod of 1.2. It's got a 4-3 weapon setup, 3 device slots. For the bridge officer setup here, Commander Science with Intel, Lieutenant Commander Engineering with Temporal Operative, Lieutenant Commander Tactical, Lieutenant Universal, and Ensign Universal. So if you're looking to do a pure science setup, this probably is not going to beat out the existing options, but this bridge officer setup should be insanely good for a DoSci platform. So again, if you're a DoSci player, this bundle seems to be liking you quite a bit. Console-wise, 4 tactical, 2 engineering, and 5 science. Base turn rate of 12, impulse mod of 0.2, inertia of 50, plus 10 to weapon and aux power. Can equip cannons. It being an Intel ship, it does have a cloak and the gather Intel ship mechanic. It has subsystem targeting, and it's not mentioned here, but the blog, it just had an error here. This does actually have a secondary deflector. It's similar to a science spearhead in that way, so it does have a secondary deflector. They just forgot to put it in the blog. It has an innate weapon, the tunneling graviton lance, which I'll talk about here shortly, and it has the science vessel mastery package. So plus exotic damage, plus shield HP, plus healing, and plus shield regen and hardness. And the Admiralty stats are 23 engineering, 47 science, 47 tac, and the special is plus 20 engine tac when alone. And here's the innate lance that it has, the tunneling graviton lance. Really nice visual there. After a short charge up time, this weapon fires a graviton beam forward, dealing significant physical damage and dragging foes hit toward the center of the beam, gathering them in a line shape. So, again, interesting visual there, and sounds like an interesting effect. The console here is the fusion cutting beam. Activating this console creates a subspace partition in the shape of a thin column and creates within it what is essentially the environment of a core of a main sequence star. The result is a beam which can be maintained only for a brief period and can be slowly moved around, sweeping across the battlefield and dealing very significant fire damage to foes. It tracks whatever the ship's target is at the time and hits everything in the column. A really neat visual there, and the fact that the beam can move around like that and deal damage to everything in its path, that sounds really interesting. This console also provides a passive bonus to EPG, skill, and critical severity, and of course can be used on any ship in any slot. The tooltip here will target your current foe and establish a fusion cutting beam for 20 seconds that tracks your ship's primary target and sweeps around the battlefield, damaging foes over time in a line. 2 foes in the beam, it will deal fire damage twice a second. And the starship trait here is threaded particle projectors. While this trait is slotted, using an Intel or Science Bridge Officer ability applies a bonus to EPG for a moderate duration. This bonus improves up to double with the ship's critical severity, and this may trigger without timing or cooldown restrictions, but always refreshes itself rather than stacking. So when triggered, it will be from 30 to plus 75 EPG based on your current critical severity. So looks interesting. Could be a good budget science trait. I'm not sure if it would, fit in on the high-end builds, but at a minimum, it's good to have more EPG traits right in the C-store. And next up, we have the Princeton Miracle Worker Cruiser. This is the Niagara. And this ship here has a hull modifier of 1.45, shield mod of 1.05, 4 weapon setup, 4 device slots. It has a Lieutenant Commander Tactical with Command, Lieutenant Engineering, Commander Engineering with Miracle Worker, Ensign Science, and a Lieutenant Commander Universal. So a pretty generic 4-4 Miracle Worker Cruiser. The command on it does mean you can use this as a torpedo platform, but I think the biggest restriction you're going to have with this ship, the biggest limiting factor, is that Lieutenant Engineering. You're going to find that makes this ship have a bit more engineering on it than you would want on most builds. Console-wise, 4 tactical, 5 engineering, 2 science, and 1 universal. Base turn rate of 8.5, impulse mod of 0.16, inertia of 45, plus 10 to weapon and power, plus 5 to engine and aux. It has the innovation ship mechanic because it's a Miracle Worker ship. It has access to all 4 cruiser commands, and it has the default cruiser mastery package. So plus physical and kinetic damage resistance, plus hull regen, plus energy damage resistance rating, and plus max hull capacity. Thus far, just off the ship stats alone, to me, this is the most unimpressive ship so far in this bundle. The other 3 ships have all, like stats-wise, they've had something that you could do with them. Whereas this one, I just don't think is a very, very great platform. It can work, but it's not going to be as good as the other options out there. For the Admiralty card, Engineering 66, Science 17, 35 for TAC, and plus 10 inch per inch ship. The console here is Fractal Integrity Bleed. By causing a harmonic dissonance in the ship's structural integrity emitters, this technology can turn a ship's resilience into a weapon capable of ripping apart the integrity fields of nearby enemy starships. The devastation comes at the cost of bleeding off the ship's own integrity, however, so it must be used with the utmost of care, or at least with restorative capabilities close at hand. This technique drains your own hull while active, but also inflicts major radiation damage to enemies based on your current hull value. It will automatically shut off your own hull. For the Admiralty stats here, it is 66 engineering, 17 science, 35 tac, and a special of plus 10 engineering per in ship. The console here, basically what this does is it has a passive for max hull capacity and an increase to healing received that scales as your current hull decreases. And the clicky, while it's active, to enemies within 5 kilometers, it will deal radiation damage equivalent to 16% of your current hull capacity. And to self, it will deal radiation damage for 8% of your max hull capacity. And the console will automatically turn off once your hull capacity drops below 33% of max. So this is causing you damage to deal damage to your foes. These types of consoles, they can be fun to mess around with sometimes, but I would not have high expectations for this. Um, you know, it doesn't really look that impressive to me. And the Starship trait here is risk first reward. While this trait is slotted, receiving hull healing will cause radiation damage directed to your currently targeted foe, or nearest if you have no target. The amount of damage is equivalent to the healing received. May only trigger a maximum of once per second, and does not trigger while current hull is above 90%. Hull regeneration does not trigger this effect. I don't think this trait is going to see a ton of use. Again, you have to be below 90% for this to even be able to trigger. So some of you may have some niche application where this will really appeal to you, but for general gameplay, I don't see this trait having a ton of impact. Ultimately, the Niagara here is the weakest ship in this bundle by far, and the accessories on it also seem to be the weakest. So if you were looking at just picking up the standalone ships, I think the Niagara or the Princeton Miracle Worker Cruiser here is certainly one of them that you could opt out of picking up. And to wrap things up here, the 14th anniversary bundle is introducing 4 new ships into the C-Store: the Atlantis, the Ahwahnee, the Chekov, and the Princeton. But only 3 of those are worth talking about: the Atlantis, the Ahwahnee, and the Chekov. And of those 3, only 2 of those are actually going to matter to most of you: the Atlantis and the Ahwahnee. And the issue for Cryptic here is that those ships can be purchased with a T6 coupon, like the one that they gave away with the anniversary event, and you can purchase them for 2,400 Zen a pop with the sale that they have going on alongside the introduction of this bundle. So for most of you, you're getting most of the value from this bundle, just by getting the Atlantis and the Ahwahnee. The Chekov is also really good for those of you doing science stuff, but that is a more niche playstyle. Now, if you are in a position where you're interested in the Atlantis, the Ahwahnee, and the Chekov, getting the entire bundle is not that big of a stretch. And if you're in that position, if you wait for a 35% bundle sale in the future, you'll be able to get this bundle for just over $100. And at that point, I think the bundle would be worth it. But as is, if you're just interested in the Atlantis and the Ahwahnee, Cryptic is not really delivering here with the bundle exclusives, in my opinion. That Tal Shiar adapted destroyer, like I said before, whoever decided to put that into this bundle thinking that it would appeal to us just doesn't understand endgame play. They don't understand what makes a ship good or bad. So Cryptic's disconnect from endgame play is really coming back to bite them here, because if this premium ship had been something more desirable, even if it was the Parliament, I think it would have been a bit more appealing to people. And I don't think the Parliament would have been a great choice here, but I think it would have been more appealing than this Tal Shiar destroyer. The other bundle exclusives, if you're interested in those, you're probably going to get the bundle no matter what anyways, like the Type 3 phaser rifle and those Borg pets. The trait here, we don't know if that's good or bad or not yet. We need to see how fast that stacks up. And the one-time bundle exclusives also add a bit of value to the bundle, but again, I think you can justify the bundle during a 35% sale if you're interested in 2 to 3 of the ships that they're introducing here. But if you're not interested in a ton of these ships, the bundle just doesn't really have that big draw to it like we saw with the 12th and 13th bundles, which had really good premium ships in them. So again, Cryptic dropped the ball here with the Tal Shiar adapted destroyer. If this had been a more desirable ship, going in and picking up the entire bundle would have been an easier consideration. But as is, unless they go in and add another ship, I think just going for the Atlantis and the Ahwahnee is probably the way to go here. And that's going to be it for today. I'd be curious to hear what you guys think about the bundle now that we know the stats. Are you going to go in and pick up just a couple of the ships, or are you going to wait for a bundle sale and pick the entire bundle up? please let me know down below. And as always, thank you to all channel members and viewers for the continued support. See you guys around.